The sterile, white walls of the children's ward faded away, replaced by wide-eyed wonder. The rhythmic beeping of machines, a constant soundtrack to their young lives, was momentarily forgotten. For a fleeting, magical moment, the children of County General were not patients. They were kids, staring up at their hero. Tom Holland, clad in the iconic red and blue suit, crouched down, his masked eyes level with a small boy named Leo. Leo, all of 7 years old, had a heart that didn't beat quite right. He'd spent more time in hospitals than in parks, his world confined to sanitized rooms and the company of nurses. But right now, his world was limitless. It was as big as the skyscraper-swinging adventures he'd watched on the screen in his room. "Hey, man," Tom said, his voice slightly muffled by the mask, but the warmth in his American-accented tone was unmistakable. "I heard you were looking for me." Leo, usually shy and withdrawn, could only nod, his small hand clutching a worn-out Spider-Man action figure. He'd had it since his first surgery, a talisman against the fear that crept in during the long, quiet nights. Tom noticed the toy. "Is that me?" he asked, pointing a gloved finger. Leo nodded again. "He looks a little beat up. Must have been in some tough fights." "He helps me be brave," Leo whispered, his voice barely audible. "Yeah." Tom leaned in closer. "Well, I've got a little secret for you. Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you keep going, even when you are." He then effortlessly pushed himself up into a handstand, balancing for a moment before flipping back onto his feet with a quiet thud. The children gasped, their faces alight with a mixture of shock and delight. For them, this wasn't an actor in a suit. It was the real deal. Tom spent the next hour moving from room to room. He visited a young girl named Maya, whose battle with a rare blood disorder left her weak and often in pain. He sat by her bedside, not as a superhero, but as a friend. They talked about her favorite cartoons, her love for drawing, and her dream of one day seeing the ocean. He listened, truly listened, his focus entirely on her. He saw not a patient, but a vibrant young soul with a story to tell. He arm wrestled with a teenager who had lost a leg to bone cancer, letting the boy win with a dramatic flair that sent a ripple of laughter through the ward. He shared stories from the set, not the glamorous tales of fame, but the funny mishaps, the times he stumbled or forgot his lines. He made himself human, relatable, and in doing so, he made them feel seen. This was not a one-time publicity stunt. This was a mission for Tom. Years earlier, he and his family had started the Brothers Trust, a charity aimed at supporting smaller, lesser-known causes. He had seen firsthand how illness could ravage a family, not just physically but emotionally and financially. He understood the power of a moment of joy in a sea of hardship. He remembered a young boy in London, a supporter of the Momentum charity his trust worked with. The boy, who had fought a valiant battle with cancer, had been a huge Spider-Man fan. His passing had left a profound impact on Tom, solidifying his resolve to use his platform for something more meaningful than box office numbers. Before he left County General, Tom returned to Leo's room. He had one last gift. It was a brand new, pristine Spider-Man suit, just Leo's size. "Every hero needs a suit," Tom said, his voice serious. "And I've seen how strong you are. The world needs more heroes like you." He then told Leo about another boy, Jerry, a heart transplant recipient. Tom had officially passed the mantle of Spider-Man to him in a video message, a symbolic gesture that had given Jerry a new sense of purpose and strength. "Now, it's your turn to help me out," Tom said to Leo. "When you're feeling strong enough, you put on this suit. And you remember that you've got the heart of a hero." As Tom Holland walked out of the hospital, the setting sun casting long shadows across the parking lot, he was no longer Spider-Man. He was just Tom, a young man who understood that true strength wasn't about swinging from buildings or fighting supervillains. It was about showing up, about offering a hand, and about reminding a child in the darkest of times that they are not forgotten. He was leaving behind more than just autographed pictures and toys. He was leaving behind hope, a powerful medicine that no doctor could prescribe. And for the children of County General, that was the greatest superpower of all. Bitorobi stayu na 20,000 symbolf, nivrakovuchu probolf. Pokazathi prochis merkavanga. The silence in the pediatric oncology and cardiology wing of County General Hospital was a living thing. It was a heavy blanket, woven from the threads of antiseptic cleaner, parental worry, and the soft, rhythmic sighs of machines that measured life in electronic pulses. This silence was not peaceful. It was the sound of waiting. Waiting for test results. Waiting for meal trays. Waiting for a miraculous turn of events that felt increasingly distant with each passing Tuesday. On the fourth floor, Nurse Diane Miller, a woman whose 20 years of service had etched permanent lines of empathy and exhaustion around her eyes, was changing in bag. She had seen it all. She'd seen celebrity visits that were little more than a flurry of camera flashes and forced smiles, leaving a wake of disruption and ultimately feeling hollow. They were a momentary distraction, a sparkler that fizzled out, leaving the darkness feeling even deeper. So, when the hospital administrator had informed her that Tom Holland would be visiting, she'd simply nodded, her expectations firmly tethered to the ground. Another photo opportunity. Another disruption to their fragile routine. The first sign of change was not a bang, but a whisper. It started with a child down the hall, one who was being wheeled back from a radiology scan. The whisper became a gasp, then a chain reaction of hushed excitement that traveled from room to room faster than any virus. Heads peeked out of doorways. The low hum of cartoons was clicked off. Even the ever-present beeping seemed to fall into a more expectant rhythm. Then, he appeared at the end of the corridor. He wasn't flanked by an entourage or trailed by press. He was just there, in the full Spider-Man suit, one hand raised in a casual wave. The suit itself was a marvel of engineering, but what struck Nurse Miller was the way he wore it. He moved with a quiet, contained energy, a fluidity that spoke of an athlete, not just an actor. He wasn't playing a character. He seemed to be inhabiting an ideal. His first stop was room 407, Leo's room. Leo was 7, but his eyes held the ancient weariness of someone who had undergone 3 open-heart surgeries. His world had shrunk to the size of his bed, a universe defined by the metal rails and the view of a brick wall from his window. His constant companion, clutched in a handpail from too many needle pricks, was a Spider-Man action figure. The paint was chipped, the limbs were loose, but it was his totem. It was the last gift his father had given him before his last deployment, with the words, "Spidey is strong, just like you." Leo's mother, Sarah, sat in the worn armchair by the window, a book open on her lap that she hadn't read a page of in an hour. She saw him first. Her breath caught in her throat. For a split second, her exhausted mind allowed the fantasy to take hold. A hero had come. He had come for her son. Tom paused at the doorway, crouching down to make himself smaller, less intimidating. The mask's white eyes tilted. "Knock, knock," he said, his voice carrying a clear, friendly American tone, slightly filtered by the fabric. "I got a message that a superhero in training needed a consult." Leo's head, which had been resting listlessly on his pillow, slowly lifted. His eyes, usually dull with pain and medication, widened into perfect circles. He looked from the figure in the doorway to the toy in his hand, his small mind trying to bridge the gap between plastic and reality. Tom entered the room and knelt beside the bed, bringing himself eye to eye with the boy. The sterile hospital room, with its charts and tubes, seemed to dissolve around them. "I see you've got one of my guys there," Tom said, gesturing with a gloved finger toward the action figure. "He looks like he's seen some serious action. You must be a tough boss." Sarah watched, frozen. A tear she hadn't realized was forming traced a path down her cheek. It had been weeks since she had seen this much light in Leo's face. Leo finally found his voice, a small, reedy whisper. "He helps me. When it's dark." "Yeah, he's good for that," Tom said, his voice soft. "But you know who's really doing the work? The guy holding him. The suit and the powers are cool, for sure. But the real superpower is getting up when you get knocked down. It's facing the stuff that scares you. I get scared all the time on set. They dangle me from these crazy high wires, and my stomach just drops. But you know what I do?" Leo shook his head, utterly captivated. "I think about guys like you," Tom said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial level. "I think about kids who are way tougher than I am, fighting real battles every single day. That's what makes me brave. You guys make me brave." He then looked around the room, a mischievous energy radiating from him. "You know, all this sitting around is boring. We need some action." Without another word, he placed his palms flat on the floor, kicked his legs into the air, and held a perfect, unwavering handstand for a full 10 seconds. He lowered himself down with a controlled grace that sent a quiet jolt through the room. Leo let out a sound Sarah hadn't heard in months, a genuine, unforced laugh. It was pure, beautiful music. It was the sound of a 7-year-old boy forgetting, for a precious moment, where he was. Tom spent another 10 minutes with Leo, asking about school, his favorite video games, and what he wanted to be when he grew up. He didn't talk down to him. He spoke to him as an equal, a fellow warrior. As he was about to leave, Tom turned to Sarah. "He's incredible," he said, his voice now stripped of the performance, filled only with sincerity. The strength in him. It's just wow. Sarah could only manage a choked, "Thank you. You have no idea what this means." "It means a lot to me, too," he replied, and she knew he meant it. His next stop was with Maya, a 12-year-old artist whose sketchbooks were her only escape from the relentless cycle of chemotherapy for leukemia. Her room was a gallery of fantastical creatures and faraway planets. She was shy, her hair only just beginning to return in a soft fuzz, and she hid behind her sketchbook when Tom entered. Instead of trying to pull her out of her shell with loud antics, he changed his approach. "Whoa, is that a Xylosian star dragon?" he asked, pointing to a complex pencil drawing taped to her wall. Maya's head popped up, surprised. "You know what that is? Are you kidding me? I love that comic," he lied, seamlessly and without a hint of deceit. "The way the artist, what's her name, draws the wing membranes is insane. But I think yours is better. You got the perspective just right." For the next 15 minutes, he wasn't Spider-Man. He was an art critic. He sat with Maya, flipping through her sketchbook page by page. He didn't offer empty praise. He asked specific questions. "How did you get that shading effect on its claw? What's the backstory of this character? She looks like she's seen some things." He gave her world the respect and seriousness she felt it deserved. He saw her not as a sick girl, but as a fellow creator, a world builder. When he left, Maya immediately uncapped a pen and began to draw, a fierce look of concentration on her face. She was drawing a new character, a hero who could heal with a single touch. Then came Jake's room. Jake was 16. A year ago, he was the star forward on his high school soccer team. Now, osteosarcoma had claimed his right leg below the knee. His anger was a palpable force in the room, a shield against the pity he saw in everyone's eyes. When Spider-Man walked in, Jake just snorted. "Come to tell me that with great power comes great responsibility?" he asked, the sarcasm thick. Tom took off his mask. Jake's cynical expression faltered for a second, seeing the young, earnest face underneath. "Nah," Tom said, setting the mask on the bedside table. "I came to ask for a rematch." He pointed to the small television where a video game console was hooked up. "I played your doctor in a racing game in the lounge. He totally cheated. I figure you want a piece of the champ." Jake hesitated. Then a flicker of his old competitive fire returned. "You're on, Parker, but you're going down." They played for 20 minutes. Tom was a good player, but Jake was better. The room filled with the sounds of button mashing and trash talk. It was normal. It was two guys playing video games. There was no patient, no celebrity. After Jake had decisively won 3 races in a row, he set the controller down, a real smile touching his lips for the first time that day. "You know," Tom said, his tone shifting slightly, "the physical therapy I have to do for the movies is brutal. There are days I can't lift my arm, or my knee swells up to the size of a grapefruit. Times I just want to quit." Jake listened, his guard down. "But then the trainers tell me to find a new way to do the exercise," Tom continued. "Adapt. Use different muscles. Find a new kind of strength I didn't know I had. It's not about what you lost. It's about what you do with what's left." He looked at Jake, his gaze direct and filled with respect. "You're a hell of a lot stronger than you think you are, man." He didn't offer pity. He offered solidarity. For Jake, that was everything. Nurse Miller had been watching from the doorway during Tom's visit with Jake. Her initial cynicism had long since melted away, replaced by a profound sense of admiration. This wasn't a performance for a camera. This was genuine human connection. He tailored his approach to each child, seeing their individual needs, their unique personalities. He wasn't just wearing the suit. He was earning it. As he was preparing to leave the ward, Tom found her by the nurse's station. "Thank you," she said simply. "I was wrong about this." Tom smiled, a slightly tired but genuine expression. "It's my honor. Honestly, my family and I, we have a charity, the Brothers Trust. We started it because you feel so helpless, you know? You see these big problems and you want to do something, anything. We try to shine a light on smaller charities, the ones on the front lines, like the people here. Every little bit of light, helps push back the dark. He spoke of a young boy he had supported through the Momentum charity, a boy who had loved Spider-Man more than anything. He spoke of the boy's fight, his courage, and the deep sadness of his loss. It wasn't a story he told for sympathy, but as a statement of purpose. It was the why behind his actions. It was the fuel that kept him going. Before he left, he made one final stop. He went back to room 407. Leo was sitting up in bed, looking at his old action figure with new eyes. Tom was holding a bag. From it, he pulled a brand new, child-sized Spider-Man suit. It was perfect. "All right, hero," Tom said, placing it on the bed. "A little while ago, I met this amazing kid named Jerry. He had a heart transplant, got a brand new engine, just like you will. I officially passed the suit on to him. But the world is a big place. It needs a lot of heroes. So I'm recruiting." He leaned in close, his voice a low, serious whisper. "This suit doesn't give you powers. The power is already in you. It's in that heart of yours. This is just so the whole world can see it. When you're feeling strong, you put this on. And you remember that you are part of the team. Got it?" Leo nodded, his eyes shining with unshed tears of pure joy. He reached out and hugged Tom's leg, a small, desperate act of gratitude and affection. Tom Holland walked out of County General Hospital as the sun was setting, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. The mask was off. In the silence of his car, the adrenaline faded, replaced by a deep, resonant emotion. It was a mix of sorrow for the pain he had witnessed and an overwhelming sense of purpose. The glitz of Hollywood, the red carpets, the billion-dollar box office numbers, all of it felt distant and muted. This was real. The smiles, the laughter, the fleeting moments of normalcy he could provide, that was the real heroic work. Back on the 4th floor, the heavy silence had been broken. It was replaced by a new sound. It was the sound of Jake on the phone, laughing with a friend. It was the sound of Maya's pencil scratching furiously across paper, creating new worlds. And in room 407, Sarah watched as her son, Leo, carefully laid his new suit across the chair, then picked up his old, battered action figure. He held it up to the light, no longer just a toy, but a promise. A symbol of a day when a hero came to his room and reminded him that he was one, too. The light lingered long after the visitor was gone.